Yes, good.
And the reason I wanted to, it's going to record the back of my head. That's not a good idea. Anyways, no worries. The content is the most important, not my face. Yeah, I wanted to record. I haven't actually been feeling well lately, guys. And so I didn't feel like I was on my A game yesterday for the New York team. So I wanted to record this material for them. Hopefully it'll be better today. So that's up there. Okay, so here's the thing. Today I'm going to talk about the phases of your business, phases of growth in your business. And you guys are usually used to me talking, being an inspirational guy, being a motivational guy, but I wanted to talk a little bit of at least some technical stuff, some brass tacks for you guys to take home. So we're going to talk about the different phases of growth in your business. Those phases are the additive phase, multiplicative phase, which I'm not sure if that's a word or not, Corey, but we'll use it for this context, and the exponential phase. That's the third one. And obviously, we all want to get to the exponential phase, right? Yes? No?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So those are the three phases of growth. Now, the first phase is the additive phase. There's a lot of you, I think, in this room, hopefully, that are participating in a sprint. Yes? Yeah, like a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day sprint? 90-day? Okay, awesome, good. And especially if you're newer, you're going to be going through this additive phase. It's your efforts, you haven't quite reached the other people's efforts yet. It's your own efforts, you're doing the BDPs, you're bringing in people, you're recruiting, you're sponsoring. And so you're adding one member here, right? You're adding one new customer, you're adding another member. So it's that additive phase. And it's going to feel super arduous. Arduous, that's my $10 word for It's going to feel slow, and that's just the natural part of it. Momentum takes time, and that's the whole theme of this weekend, right? Momentum takes time to build. The other thing is, and Pinal touched on it, is it's a numbers game at this point. You have to go cycle through as many people as possible, and the faster you do it, the faster the ratio appears, right? You guys have all listened to the Jim Rohn training.
Yeah.
Do it enough times, the ratio appears, right? So it's just working the numbers, right? That additive phase. I'm going to talk about that working the numbers. I'm going to touch on that again in a little bit. So additive phase, that's kind of where we're all at, because it takes a long time for a locomotive to get moving, right? Like if you have a big freight train, it doesn't go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds like the Tesla, right? Right? It takes a long time to get moving. Same thing with our business, like the space shuttle, that's another analogy. It takes a tremendous amount of energy and time for it to just get off the ground, right? So you have to put that effort, you gotta really push through this additive phase, because once you get through the additive phase, then you're gonna be in the multiplicative phase. Now again, there are a lot of you guys that are doing these sprints. It's awesome, and you might be at a level where you have people on your team doing the sprints as well. So not only are you doing the sprint, but people on your team are doing the sprint, so you have now the multiplicative phase. That's a great place to be. That's an awesome place to be. Momentum is starting to really pick up. You're about in the ranks of like high emeralds into the diamonds, right? Like you have some duplication happening. That's a great place to be, the multiplicative phase. But you are still doing a lot of working through the numbers, right? It's a numbers game. So the third phase, getting to the third phase, the exponential phase, what's the step? Because now you're feeling pretty extended, I would imagine, a lot of you guys, right? That are on the sprint and then they're helping your team have sprints. The next phase then is exactly what we did in New York, and really in Pennsylvania and in all the organizations in the early days, was we taprooted, right? So and right now it's gonna feel like, oh my God, I can't add any more stuff to my day. I can't do it, I'm already extended, but trust me, you'll get used to it. You'll have gotten used to the additive phase, the momentum's building, you'll get used to the multiplicative phase, so you just add one more little thing, and that's taprooting. Now what does taprooting mean? It means exactly what it says. You go to the bottom of the leg and you start building. When you sign up one new person, you build you sit in their living room and help them score some wins, right? 30 days really is for me the most crucial. The first 30 days is the most crucial time in any distributor's career, right? that your first 30 days of business, you have to help somebody score some wins in those first 30 days. Because if you don't, the belief starts to waver, right? The belief starts to waver. So if you can help people score some wins in the living rooms, be taprooting in their thing, help them score some PCs, help them score some new members, then it's a win for everybody, and the energy starts to go up. And then when you have a new member coming out of that taproot, you go to their living room as well. And you keep repeating that. And that's what we did in 2013 in New York. This is what my 2013 looked like, and actually a lot of my 2012, because we did the same thing in Pennsylvania. In 2013, and mind you, I was a Ruby at this point. I think, yeah, Ruby. But I wasn't, that was my highest pin rank. I wasn't qualifying by any means as a Ruby. 2013, we had the Transform U, the very first Transform U in Yoli's history in Reading, Pennsylvania. And Jenny and a handful of people drove from New York, small, like 4 people, drove from New York to attend that Transform U, and it changed their life. Jenny saw a Jim Rohn video. Profits are better than wages, right? Profits are better than wages, and that just completely revolutionized her mindset. And so she went back to New York, and everything started going bonkers. By March of that year, we were taprooting, and I was driving up, like she said, pretty much every weekend since that Transform U. I was driving up back and forth, and you know, I don't think I-95 goes all the way up here, but I was really familiar with Highway 95 because it was like an 8-hour, 9-hour, 10-hour drive depending on the weather. But we were working. We taprooted it, right? So we would do BBPs. I would stay there for 2-3 nights, drive back to North Carolina, do it all again the next weekend, do it again the next weekend. And we were able to identify small pockets of growth and then keep driving those depths. By March, I was a diamond, right? That was the Cancun trip. It was still picking up, and I was, after that Cancun trip, it came back, still went to work. We were taprooting. So there were more places for us to work. Because what happens is when you're driving depth, what happens to everybody up top? They get excited, right? You light that fire underneath, everybody upstairs gets excited, and before you know it, offshoots start to happen. So we have more branches, we have more depth to drive. By April of that same year, I hit double. And did you just you could hit diamond at that time? Yeah, April. February to April, she hit diamond. I went from diamond to double diamond. And we just kept doing it, driving that depth. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm pretty close to the team, both my Pennsylvania team and the New York guys. One of the added benefits of taprooting and of driving depth is you develop the relationships, right? You get to really know your team. You get to know your Ohana, and they get to know you. Yeah. And those relationships are the glue for making this business stick, right? So we were in the trenches, just kept driving that depth, and ultimately it started to really hit that. It went from that multiplicative phase to the exponential. And by July that year, I was a blue. From February to July, guys. That's the power of that exponential growth. There was so many branches in that depth growing, right, that it just took a life of its own. And in fact, when I was making my blue diamond run, which is a 4-week run, and you know, I'm not going to get too technical with that, but it's a 4-week run, I wasn't even in the field. I was moving to Las Vegas at the time, right? And my first week on that run, I was driving in a U-Haul truck with my sister and our dogs. 5 days across the country in a U-Haul because they're really slow, right? But we were checking the volume. I'm like, oh, I think this is your first week blue diamond run. Woohoo! Woohoo! Exponential growth. Second week it happened again, and in fact, okay, so here's kind of how my brain works. I'm completely zero plan, I don't plan very much or very well. And so we moved out to Vegas, and I had I was thinking it'd be easy to get a place, you know what I mean? Yeah. I was making all this money at this point. I'm like, good, it's not gonna be a problem. We can afford whatever. We get there, and nobody wants to accept my application because my credit was so bad from being broke all those years before. So the second, third, fourth week of my run, we were actually living in a La Quinta, because that was one of the only hotels that accepts dogs, you know? So like completely out of the field, the momentum had taken over. The locomotion, the freight train just could not be stopped. I wasn't in the field anymore, right? And that's another added bonus of hitting that exponential phase, because you're gonna feel like it's a ton of work. I was driving up and down the East Coast to North Carolina to New York, but the exponential hit, and I didn't even have to be in the field, and it was growing without me, right? So you might feel extended and you're like, oh, I can't do it, but I was able to get my time back.
Yeah.
Right? Is that cool or what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Now the sprints again are great, and I'm seeing a lot of results. And oh, here's another thing with the numbers game, right? When you're doing the additive phase, and even in the multiplicative phase, it is a numbers game, right? You're trying to find the perfect candidates. When you're driving depth, see, your numbers game is all about working the numbers to find the right people to bring into the business. Once they're in the business, it's not a numbers game anymore, right? Once they're in the business, they become a person, right? Don't treat them like a numbers game. Oh, he's not going to work. Bleh. You brought him in. He's your responsibility. I have to say, recently, there's a lot of people have been running. I just ran last weekend in Disney. I ran a 5K, a 10K, and then a half marathon. So there's a lot of races going on. I just completely lost track of what I was talking about. This happens. I haven't been taking my omegas, Dr. People running?
There's a lot of people running.
There's a lot of people running. Sprinting. Holy cow. I'm having a senior moment right now, guys. Momentum.
That's great.
That's great. Yeah, so okay, let me backtrack. Running, a lot of people running. Numbers game. Numbers.
Don't treat them like a number.
Don't treat them like a number. Yeah, don't treat them like a number. Exactly. Good job. Good job. Don't treat them like a number. Once they're in, they cease to become a number, because you're not working the numbers game anymore. But when you're driving depth, you're developing that relationship. You're getting to know who they are, and you're helping them actually work through the numbers, right? So it's a numbers game, but it's not a numbers game. Remember that. And with these sprints, and I know you guys, you see, even just in the 90-day sprint, you see how long it takes to start getting results. Maybe your first 4 weeks, you feel like nothing's happening. And things start to maybe kind of kick in the second month, and then you start to pick up the third month. Am I correct? Yes? Is that what you're experiencing? I want you guys to know that these sprints are just practice for the marathon. Right? It's just practice for the marathon. Because this business is a marathon. Who wins? Corey said it. The turtle. The turtle wins. Right? So, even though your goal at a sprint is not really the result, right? That's the added benefit. If you do a sprint, you're going to get results. That's the what do we say in this company? That's the side effect, right? You'll have new PCs, you'll have new members, you'll have increased volume, and hopefully increased checks. That's the side effect. The goal really for a sprint is, like I said, it's practice for the marathon. The sprint is getting the activity under your belt and creating that habit, right? You have to do this thing long term. It's not a 90-day thing. That momentum that happened in 2013 for me didn't happen in 2013. I started with this company at the very beginning in 2009. Yeah. We just had our birthday, November 2009. Hey. Right? Happy birthday, Lord. It was, so we're 8 years old. So fast forward to spring of 2013, that's how long it took me to go diamond. That's 3.5 years, just about. And Kinal didn't even mention the other 3 years when I was in previous companies. So we're looking at like 6.5 years of right? Like, I can't do it as good as this. Right? 6.5 years. Some people quit at 6.5 phone calls. Right? Right? It's crazy. And there's only 6.5 names on your list. Come on! Come on. Did you guys learn some stuff today? That's some really useful stuff that I know I'm going to implement. Like, there shouldn't be 6.5 people. When I hear I have run out of people to talk to, no. Why? Because F you! That's why. Yeah, that's why. They're never a number 3. They're never a number 3. They're still your friend. They're still your friend. Right? So what keeps me in? What was it in those 6.5 crazy years that keeps you going? Well, I mean, these guys pretty much said it all. You know what? Why they come across as so smart, these two, and so good? Because they steal all my material. It's the worst. And that's why they put me last. Oh, these guys. It's so true, man. Corey.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's great. It's great. So bad. So that's why I have to come up with new stuff every time. And like I have to sing at some events just to keep you guys awake. We'll karaoke tonight. So what kept me in those 6.5 years? Well, here going back to I started earlier telling you guys I haven't been feeling well. Yeah, so I had a really this is just in hindsight and reflection and looking back on my life. I had a really kind of momentous event happen to me when I was 6th, 7th grade, and that was like 11, 12 years old, right? I didn't realize then, obviously, that it was going to be a defining moment in my life, but I was in my room, I was in bed reading a social studies book, which I never did homework, so I don't know why I was reading my social studies book. But this just one little passage, completely innocuous, it was just a little thing, and it was some kind of statistics like X number of people or blah 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 blah. And that just shook my world as a child. The thought that came into my mind was, oh my gosh, is that all we're gonna be? By the end of the life? By the end of this journey? Is that all I'm gonna be? Is it a number? I started feeling like the world was closing on me. I started getting the shivers, like I was completely flush, and I realized now that I had a full-on anxiety attack at that age. Like it was one of the most frightening things I've ever experienced. I would not wish that on anybody. And that's why I've actually had anxiety levels been pretty high the last couple of days. And that's why I was really off my game. Which, Dr. Tan, thank you for that presentation, because I realized that when I travel, I fall off my regimen. So I'm gonna make sure to stay on that. But it usually happens when we have events, and that's why I was so off in my game yesterday in New York. I just couldn't get it together.
Great. Yeah.
Anyway, today's way better, right? Today's way better. So that's kind of the thing, and kudos to you, Vanessa, for sharing today. That is amazing. Just being so open. All you guys that shared, says, oh my God. Being so open and sharing that vulnerability is absolutely amazing. So that was kind of my thing, and at the age of 11 and 12, I had this just life-altering social studies book, right? And so at this very first TU in Reading, Pennsylvania in 2013, that spring, that life-altering day for a lot of people, right? For a lot of people, that was a turning point for it's why we're all here today, right? Had that thing not happened, who knows? But part of the event was during the Transform game, and it was a different format back then. Robbie asked us to write down our why. Let's take 5 minutes, quiet time, and write down your why. And of course, for me, I had tremendous amounts of why. I was super broke. That's a big one. I was working at a movie theater at the time. I was, making $6.75 an hour in North Carolina, minimum wage, living at home with mom and dad, who were both also living paycheck to paycheck. So there I was. I didn't have any kind of financial wherewithal, and they couldn't retire because they had a grown child who wasn't contributing to the household, and even worse, being a burden because he's doing this crazy business. I borrowed so much, as an aside, I borrowed so much money from my sister. I borrowed money from, I pretty much drained her savings account. I borrowed money from her 401k just to keep my business afloat, right? And to attend the events. Because I knew I couldn't miss an event. Well, which is why I retired my sister. as payback. So I had a big why, that was really kind of, it was do or die. There's no plan B. Corey always says, I'm either going to be standing at the top of the mountain or standing at the bottom, right, or on the side. So I had a big why, but what came out of me that day when we just got really deep and quiet and just 5 minutes, and it didn't even take me 5 minutes to write, and I wrote, I wanted my life to matter, right? And that again was another turning point for me. It absolutely floored me because I didn't really know at that time where it came from. Just like I didn't know why I had an anxiety attack at the age of 12. I hadn't even been thinking of that. All those years I was building my business. But that kept me in because I wanted my life to matter. I had seen all my relatives, the previous generation, live out their lives, 40, 50 years, doing something that I knew that I didn't want to do, right? Spending their formative years, their most productive years, living the same day in, day out, 40, 50 years. And I said that at Transform You, right? But who was here at Transform You in Philly? Okay, good. Don't miss an event. For those of you guys who didn't go, make sure you go next time. Or just kill it in this next 12 months and maybe we'll have it up here. I don't know. I don't know. So I wanted my life to matter because the alternative was, it was not something, and I make no judgments on whether or not they were fulfilled, but I didn't want that for me. And having been exposed to this business, having been exposed to another option, here's the thing. I want you guys after today to start living your life on purpose. Not with purpose. Yes, of course you have to live with purpose, but I want you to live it on purpose. Live the life of your design, not a design that somebody told you was the option. Right. And now that you know that there is something else that can give you back your life, give you back your time, why would you not fight tooth and nail for it? Yeah. That's what kept me in for 6.5 years. I didn't care how long it took. It's a numbers game. It's guaranteed, just like Hinaro said. And I told you, these guys are stealing my material all the time. It's mathematically guaranteed. The ratio shows up. You cannot fail. So everybody in this room actually is already a blue diamond. Yeah. But there's a caveat, Pops. There's a caveat. You can't quit. Yes. And you have to consistently do the work. Yes. You do the work for long enough time. You improve your skills. You do personal development. Finally, you will become the person that you need to be to have a huge business, for your business to go into that exponential phase. Is that what you guys want? Yes. You guys are already blue diamonds. I know it. It's a mathematical certainty. If you and keep going, consistently do the activity. Again, it all goes back to that consistent activity. For 6.5 years, I was doing IPAs every day. Yep. Every day. And yes, I sucked for most of those years. Right? You gotta suck to get good. You gotta be good before you get better. Right? I sucked for a lot of those years. I had a lot of stuff to work on. And it's okay. I realize now that I had a lot of flaws, and I still have a lot of flaws. I'm never going to stop growing. I'm never going to stop growing. And for those of you, this is another side. For those of you who feel like you're content, it doesn't exist. The working theory that I talked about in Transform You in Philly is that as human beings, we're hardwired to never be satisfied. That's why we're always innovating. That's why we're always pushing. That's why we're always dreaming for more as a species. So contentment really isn't a real thing. Happiness, yes. I love it when people are happy in whatever situation, because that has to come from within. But contentment is an illusion. It's an illusion that we tell ourselves. It's an illusion of mediocrity that lulls us into complacency. And chronic, like Corey says, inconsistency. You're not content. We'll never be the best of the best. I'm always working, no matter how successful. I was definitely not content when I was broke, right? But I'm certainly not content now. Because I know I can always be better. I sucked yesterday. At least I felt like I sucked yesterday. That's why I'm working extra hard today. Right? And I want you guys to work extra hard. Take content out of your vocabulary. Because I know you can be better. All these guys said it. You have to work on being the best you as possible. Do the activity every day. Develop it into a habit so that long term, that exponential growth can come in and you can coast away into the sunset and have your business grow without you. So that's it, guys. I want to thank you guys for your time.